Hello everyone, you're just joining in our literary heaven, the Literary Nook by Fairy. Let's start our today's topic, but before going further, don't forget to subscribe the channel, like the videos and share. So my today's topic is The Merchant of Venice, an introduction to the play. Although no precise date of the composition of The Merchant of Venus has anonymously been agreed upon by the biographers of Shakespeare and by the critics, it is generally believed that this play was written sometime between the years 1596 and 1598. The internal evidence of style, its versification, its construction seems to support this belief. The skillful management of its complex plot, the powerful and varied characterization in it, and the beauty of its versification link it with Shakespeare's three other romantic comedies, namely Much Ado About Nothing, which was written in 1598, As You Like It, which was written in 1599, The Twelfth Night, which was written in 1600 to 1601. Shakespeare didn't himself invent the plots or the stories of his play. He generally borrowed a story, a plot from an existing play, tale, or a legend, then modified, altered, or added to or shaped it according to his own requirements. In the case of The Merchant of Venus, he borrowed his main plot, namely the one pertaining to the pound of human flesh, from To Picron, a collection of Italian tales of which an English translation was in existence. He borrowed the story of the caskets from an English translation of a Latin work called Gesta Romanorum. The Comedy of the Ring seems to have been added to the play by Shakespeare himself, though the two major stories of his play were both borrowed. Shakespeare modified and altered them to suit his own design, and he particularly showed his originality and the skill in combining and interweaving them so as to construct a harmonious whole. And the poetry of the play is, of course, entirely his own, as in the case of all other plays by him. The Merchant of Venus is a romantic comedy, which means that it contains a number of romantic elements and a number of comic elements too, with both kinds of elements mingled together in a manner which was Shakespeare's own. But this play, like some of his other romantic comedies, has a serious and even tragic ingredient, the love of Bassanio and Portia, and the manner in which Bassanio wins the hand of Portia are undoubtedly romantic. The cloying of Launcelot and the wit of Portia and some of the traits of Shylock, the Jew, are all undoubtedly comic. But the trial scene, in the course of which Antonio comes very close to losing his life, is undoubtedly tragic. Some of us might even find the ultimate fate of Shylock to have something tragic about it, and yet the mingling of these different elements in the same play doesn't give rise to any incongruity or any disharmony or any instinctive impression. Far from that, The Merchant of Venice is one of Shakespeare's most brilliant, most entertaining, most delightful, and most original play. The Merchant of Venus has several themes. It deals with the theme of justice and the need of mercy in the dispensation of justice, and also the need of mercy in all human relations. It deals with the theme of appearance versus reality. It deals with the theme of contrast between Venice and Belmont. It deals with the theme of wealth and usury. The play also conveys to us certain moral ideas of great value, for instance, sincerity in friendship, the need of religious toleration. Indeed, we have here a very rich and wide ranging play which is highly entertaining and yet also highly instructive. As is usual with Shakespeare, his delineation and presentation of characters in this play is eminently successful and deserving of the highest praise. The most outstanding characters in the play are Portia and Shylock. Portia is undoubtedly the heroine of the play, while Shylock is the villain, with whom she is able to deal most effectively in order to save the life of one of the finest men in Venice, namely Antonio. The portrayal of Bassanio is also very convincing and realistic. Even the minor characters in the play have been portrayed with the sureness of touch. Lorenzo, Jessica are the perfectly convincing pair of lovers who enhance the romantic interest of the story. In this connection, we may also note that Shylock is not only a villain, but also at times pathetic and tragic figure. And at certain points in the play, he even appears as a comic figure. In the opinion of some readers and critics, also, the portrayal of this Jew is one of the greatest triumphs of Shakespeare as a dramatist. While Portia stands very high among the romantic heroines in Shakespearean drama, her quality of mercy and speech is a recitation piece in English schools and is known to almost every schoolboy in England, as is Shylock's eloquent plea in the defense of the Jew and justification of the Jews' hatred of Christians. A very important aspect of this play is the antagonism which existed in those days between of the Jews and the Christians. The Christians of the time harbored many prejudice against the Jews, who, in their opinion, were not only great misers but also merciless usurers. A usurer is a person who lends money to others on a very high rate of interest, thus exploiting the economic or the financial difficulties of those who take loans. On the other hand, or the another point of conflict between the two religious communities was the fact that the Jews didn't and still do not eat pork, while pork was continued to be the staple and the favorite meat and a delicacy for the Christians. The Jews were in fact a persecuted race, and they continued to be persecuted by the Christians till recent times. Hitler's brutal treatment of Jews in his country was one of the most horrifying episodes of World War II. Hitler expelled the Jews from his country and confiscated their entire property and wealth. Thousands of German Jews were put in what were known as concentration camps, and which were really prisons in which the Jews found themselves in cramped conditions and were starved to death or shot or, as we can say, killed. It was only after the end of the World War II that efforts were made by some of the leading nations of the world to rehabilitate them. But now the Jews have become the victims of persecution by the Islamic people of the Middle East. The state of Israel, which was created to ensure the survival or the independence of the Jewish people, become an eyesore to the Muslims of the countries of Middle East. The conflict between the Jews and the Muslims still continues, and the state of the Israel would be now have completely been destroyed if it didn't have the active or the dynamic support of the United States of America, where the Jews have a powerful lobby. So the even India kept the Jews at a distance in order to win the favor of Islamic world, and has only recently entered into the certain economic commercial treaties with Israel. The Jews are no longer regarded as misers and usurers. Actually, they are a nation of brilliant people, including geniuses in many spheres of life. They have produced great musicians, scholars, statesmen, political leaders, and they have even proved to be a warlike Islamic countries by whom they are surrounded. The enmity between Antonio and Shylock is in the Merchant of Venus should therefore be understood clearly against the background of the condition which existed. This play has been portrayed by Shakespeare as partly a villain, partly a comic character, and partly also as a pathetic figure. He must be looked at in this threefold role in the play. That was all for today. Stay connected for more literary videos. Me, Fairy, signing out from the Literary Nook by Fairy.